Hello, all you wonderfully lovely people. Welcome to the Laravel News Podcast, episode 236. My name is Jake Bennett, and with me, as always, the wonderful, the Michael, the often unlauded Aussie buddy, Mr. Dorinda. How's it going, bud?
Hello, how is it going? I'm going well, recovering from some kind of lurgy that I had last week. You may
Lurgy, this is a new
I
one. I
knew.
have not heard this one from
We need
you.
to play.
Yes.
Have you ever seen QI? It's
Mm-mm.
a British like panel show. They've got like a host, and they usually have comedians on there. And it's
Yeah, okay, I've seen it then. Yeah, I've seen it.
yeah. And whenever someone says something, it like does the lights all flash in the studio and it plays the alarm. So I think we should do that every time that there's a new Australianism. We should have that play.
A lurgy. Okay,
Allergy.
spell it
It's an
for me.
illness.
Spell it.
Lurgy.
Lurgy. Okay.
It's like, just when you get sick, but it's nothing serious. You've got the
Okay.
lurgy. So,
The
and it was,
lurgy. Hmm.
when you get like the throat tickle and it's just enough to be annoying, but not really
Yeah.
enough to stop you from doing anything. Yeah.
Sure. Hmm.
Just,
That's a
just,
lurgy.
just the lurgy, just the lurgy,
Got
like
the
just a
lurgy.
very mild thing. Although, not live, re started to come down with it on Sunday night, and then she was okay yesterday, but today she's been in bed asleep for the last couple of hours. So
Oh man, that's rough.
it always, poor thing, always hits her harder than it hits any of the rest of us. Like the kids,
Hmm.
they might be a small sniffle for 2 or 3 hours, and then they're back
They
to
bounce
bouncing
right
off the
back.
wall.
Yep.
And by the time it hits me, and then eventually hits Ray, it's just gets
It
worse.
gets
And
stronger with each pass on. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And then,
Yep.
the
That
parents are
lurgy.
laying there dying, and the kids are like, we want to do stuff. We want to go outside. We
Ah,
want to play. It's like, just
yes.
please stop talking. My head is pounding.
Hmm. Yep. So, a frog in your throat. Have you heard that one before? A frog in your throat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Got a
Have I
bit of
ever
a
told you
croak.
that really embarrassing story that I have of mixing up two colloquialisms? Have I ever told you this? Oh
No, but
gosh,
I
I don't even
believe
know if
it.
it's worth. I don't know if it's worth even staying on here on air. It was so embarrassing. I'm not sure I want to. I'm not sure if I
Hmm.
want to share it with
Oh,
everybody
you've
here.
you've mentioned it now.
I think maybe we just have to, maybe we put it at the end if we remember, or
Okay.
maybe you reach out and ask me and I will tell you the story. But it's pretty
All right, let's
embarrassing.
do
And it
that.
was at like a client. It was like with the client of ours. Oh man, it was terrible. It was
All right.
terrible.
Okay. You know what? To preserve your image, let's move straight into the releases, and then if anyone remembers, they can ask you about
All
it
right.
later.
Sounds great. Hey, we want to thank our sponsor, CodeRabbit, today. We're going to be talking about them a little bit later in the show. But for now, let's jump into the releases. Laravel 12.9. Laravel team released 12.9, which included a memoized cache driver convenient relationship autoloading for model instance, a DB transaction failure callback, and more. Let's talk about the memoized cache driver. So Tim McDonald contributed this, Mr. T Mac, our Aussie buddy. This decorates any other cache driver in memory. So here's what he says in the pull request. We put things in the cache because the cache is fast, but that doesn't mean that hitting the cache is free. So this PR introduces a memoized cache driver, and what it does is it decorates any other cache driver that you might want to use, and it will remember values that were resolved from the cache and store them in memory for the remainder of that execution loop. So as it stands right now, if you say cache get foo and you do that inside of like a middleware, and then you do that again inside of a controller, and then you do that again inside of a job or something like that,
Mhm.
it's going to do that 3 times. It's going to pull it from the
Yeah.
cache 3 times. Well, if you don't want it to pull 3 times, if you want it to pull it once, you can now do cache memo get. And then the next time you call cache memo get, each time it does not actually hit the cache. It lives in memory. So you can check out the documentation to learn more about memoization or pull request 55304 for full details and discussion around that feature. This is something I feel like I've done myself, maybe, where I've tried to no, no. I think
No.
I'm just hitting cash. No, I'm just hitting
Yeah.
cash. I think I was doing this. You know what I mean? Like he said, it's not free though.
Yeah.
But I typically will cache something and be like, oh yeah, no, I never have to, worry about retrieving it again. Well, you do, especially if
Yeah.
you're, using, depending on what driver you're using, it could actually
Yeah.
take a
I
little while.
suppose if you were doing this yourself, you might have used the once helper. Like you could return, like use once to return the cache get, which would be kind of simulating this. So this is nice to be able to just do, cache dot memo, and then it's all
Hmm.
wrapped up for you automatically. And yeah, it's not free because, often you're hitting your your memcache instance is potentially on another host, or you're using some other like elastic cache or something like that where there's the network request that has to happen. So it's not necessarily going to be quicker. And if you're on like Laravel Cloud and it's using database cache by default, well, that's a round trip to the database that you're making. So, it may not impact you, but using the memoization stuff makes it all happen within memory in the same request, which is nice. So shout out Tim. He's been thinking deeply about caching for a long time.
Indeed, indeed. Yep. Tim is a good one. Another good one is Jason McCreary. Jason McCreary contributed an update to the freeze time and freeze second test methods, which now return the date if no callback is provided. So Jason put a Twitter thread out there and was like, hey, this is an issue that I'm having specifically when I'm testing dates, especially against Eloquent. He
Mhm.
gets bitten by this sub-second precision bug, which I've had the same problem happen before
Yeah.
too. I'm sure
I
you
think
have
we've
as
all had
well.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. So he said, I typically get around this by creating a date with start of second and passing set test now, but it feels clunky to do that. So does
Yeah.
anybody else have another way that they do this? And there was, a couple people who suggested a few different things. But basically, he said this PR is aiming to provide that way to do this without having to do a bunch of extra work. So calling freeze time or freeze second to return that frozen time, and so it will now be a lot better developer experience, free of these time gotchas, um, instead of having to deal with these sub-second precision bugs that you get when you're trying to test Eloquent and testing an updated at timestamp, for example. Okay, check out 55.323 for discussion and implementation on that one. Davis Shafiq contributed a new argument to the DB transaction method that allows you to pass a callback to be executed when the transaction fails. So these are super helpful. If you've not used database transactions before, you might use this in case you have a couple related things that need to happen together. And if something fails in the middle of that, you want to roll those back. So that's the idea of a database transaction. Well, now what you can do is you can pass a second argument to the transaction. The first one being a callback where you're going to actually do the things that you're trying to accomplish inside of that transaction. But the second one, the second argument you're going to pass is a closure that is going to happen in the case it fails. So on failure, you can maybe send a notification to an administrator. In addition to it rolling back, you could do a couple other things there. So thank you, Davey, for that one. Model relationship autoloading from a model. Serhii Litvinchuk contributed model relationship autoloading. So in the current implementation, automatic relation loading we can only use with relationship autoloading on collections. But sometimes we need to enable automatic relation loading for a single model. Before you had to say something like post tags, arrow with relationship autoloading, or authors with relationship autoloading. Now you can just say post arrow with relationship autoloading. You don't have to specify it for each one of those relationships. You can just say across the board with relationship autoloading. So thank you so much, Sirhe, for that one. Add descriptive error messages to assert view has. 3D Escape contributed this one. This is an update to error messages when using assert view has. So if you're given the following example from the pull request where you're going to test a response, and on that response, you're going to assert that the view has all of these things, and you're going to specify that set of keys that you're looking for. Before, when this would fail, you would get this generic error message, just this assertion failure. But now you'll get additional information details to help you understand what in fact failed. So before you would just
Mhm.
get failed asserting that false is true, not super helpful. Now you get fail asserting that key with value matches the expected value, or failed asserting that 0 matches 10, something like that. So a lot more helpful and definitely going to make debugging those tests a lot easier.
And just
Fluent,
before we move on to the last
please do.
one,
Yeah.
one thing that often bites me is when you're using bus fakes, Q fakes, mal fakes,
Hmm.
where you can
Hmm.
pass a closure and the expectation is that you return a truthy value from that
Sure.
closure to determine whether or not. And so in there, you would do things like you'd pass the job into the closure,
Yeah.
and then you would say like job arrow post equals whatever. The
Yeah.
problem is if you're doing three or four assertions and any one of those fails, you don't know what has failed.
Yes.
So what I will typically do that I found is effective for me and then is probably going to be useful for other people listening is use assertions inside of that closure. If you're using pest, expect, post, arrow,
Oh, sure.
whatever, to get all of that stuff. That way you will get explicit and clear error messages if any of those expectations or assertions fail, and then just always return true. Because either an an exception has been reached, or an assertion has failed, or an expectation has failed through that normal process, or you're going to fall through to the end and you're going to return true. And so that condition is true. So I think that often provides you a much better, more robust error message than just failed asserting false is not true. So
Love
take
it.
that
That's
one.
great.
Take that one to the bank.
Very
It's all
cool.
yours for free.
Yep, good call on that. I've had that before as well. I don't know that I've done that specific little hack there before, but that's a good one. I really like that
Yeah.
because I've definitely been bitten by the bug of I don't know exactly what went wrong
Yeah.
there. I
And
know
then you
there's
go and
something in that
comment them all
assertion.
out and bring them back one by one to figure out which one failed.
Yes, precisely that. Precisely
Mm.
that. Yeah. Okay, last one here. Michael Nabil, no stranger to pull requests, contributed a Fluent make method to create a Fluent instance. And so you just say fluent.make and pass in the attributes, and then you can arrow off that to grab those. So this has been introduced, a little while ago, but this is a easy way to get that fluent.make, pass in the attributes, and you're all done. Folks, that is 12.9. That's a big one. Let's move on to
Wow.
12.10.
Yes, the Laravel team released version 12.10, which included mapping Eloquent attributes using collections cast into a specific object, checking nested relationships, and performance improvements to array dot. So first up, Dark Ghost Hunter contributed the ability to map an Eloquent attribute into a given class using the asCollection.of method. So previously you would say asCollection class, and you would just get a collection. What you can do now is you can say as collection.of and pass it a class string. So in this case, option : class. And this is effectively the same as using a collection make and then using the mapInto collection method to then have a collection of those specific objects. The objects themselves should implement Laravel's arrayable contract and PHP's JSON serializable interface to make sure that they get cast to and from the database correctly. But thanks to Dark Ghost Hunter for that one. Michael Nabil, again, contributed the conditionable trait to the Fluent support class, providing an expressive way to conditionally modify values in a Fluent instance. Now, this thing has been around in the framework for some time. What this is doing is applying the conditionable trait. So you can do Fluent : make or request Fluent if you want to do that. And then you can pass the when or unless methods to do conditional operations on that Fluent class inline fluently. So thanks to Michael for that one. At CYPPE contributed performance improvements to the array.dot method with improvements of speed up to 150 to 300 times on large arrays. Quoting from the pull request, this PR optimizes the array.dot method, replacing the recursive implementation with a closure-based iterative approach. The optimization significantly improves performance when flattening large nested arrays, which is particularly beneficial for Laravel's validator when processing large datasets. So this is obviously going to have some impact in processing your validation rules as well. Small change here, big impact there. So thanks to at CYPPE for that one. And lastly, Mahesh Pereira contributed the ability to check nested relations with the relation loaded method. So previously you would have to do like relation loaded posts and then a separate call to do relation loaded post.comments. And if it wouldn't cascade through the dot notation. So now you can do post.comments on the relation and get the nested relationship loaded status. So thanks to Mahesh for that one. That is all for Laravel 12.10.
Very cool. We do have additional news as far as some releases are concerned. PhpStorm 2025.1 is here. If you happen to be a PhpStorm user and you like AI stuff, this is a good release for you to be up to date on. JetBrains released the stable version of 2025.1 this week with new AI features, PHP stand annotation, code completion, debugging improvements, code completion for nested variables in env files, and more. Let's jump in and break down each one of these. The first one, PHP Stan annotation support. So if you've been trying to do something in PHP Stan, in PhpStorm, it hasn't been insanely friendly, but now it supports code completion for PHP Stan type and PHP Stan import type. Um, Annotations, including array shape aliases. So this is good news. There's also nested variables in env files. There's enhanced support for those environment variables using this $ bracket syntax. There's also improved code completion, so it can take a look into your envs, pull values from there, and auto complete them for you, which is really handy. If you like to use Xdebug, two new features to help you out on that one. Xdebug installation via CLI interpreters. It can now detect if Xdebug is missing and offers an option to install it directly from the CLI interpreter's dialog. So that's pretty handy. There's also an official Xdebug helper extension. So it will maintain, JetBrains themselves will now maintain that Xdebug helper browser extension that's available for Chrome and Firefox to ensure that this process is reliable. It can be a bit of a pain in the neck trying to keep that updated yourself. So they said, let us take care of that. We'll handle that on our side. There's also the ability to search Markdown previews now, automatic WordPress core detection. And here are all the AI features that came. So JetBrains AI Assistant is now available to everyone for free. It offers unlimited code completion and, this is cool, local model support with credit-based access to other features. So you can work with local AI models like Olama or LM Studio for chat, code generation, commit messages, inline documentation, the list goes on. There is also an expanded AI model selection, so you can choose from advanced language models like Claude 3.7, Sonnet, Gemini 2.0. Uh, Again, the list goes on. And then again, there is improved context awareness. As we talked about with the ENVs, there is enhanced understanding of code context in those AI chats as well, providing more relevant and accurate assistance to you. Thank you to the JetBrains team. I'm excited to install this one. I have not yet. I did hear someone complain something about 2025.1. Something gave them a fit. I don't remember what it was, but
Mm.
you'll have that when you're updating. You'll have a couple little things to work through, I'm sure. But excited to install this one thanks to the JetBrains team.
Nice. Uh, Jake, what if you could build real iOS and Android apps using the Laravel skills you already have?
That would be freaking amazing.
You don't have to learn Swift or Kotlin, no Flutter, no React Native, just plain Laravel. And that dream is about to become reality. Native PHP for mobile version 1 will be launching next week at the time of this recording on May the 2nd. Now, we spoke about this last episode, I think. It all started back in Laracon US 2023 in Nashville for Shane Rosenthal. He was battling a migraine on the second day, exhausted, dehydrated, and counting the minutes until he could collapse back at the hotel. But as he flipped through the schedule, one talk jumped off the page, and that was Native PHP by Marcel Patsiot. The title alone stopped Shane, and his first thought was, did someone really figure out how to run Laravel on mobile? This would change everything. So he stayed, he dragged himself to the session, head pounding, and it was worth every second. It turns out it wasn't about mobile. Marcel and Simon Hamp had cracked the code for running Laravel on the desktop, native Mac, Windows, and Linux apps powered by real Laravel code. It was brilliant, not what he expected, but it planted a seed. After the event, Shane reached out to Simon and they became friends. He launched a YouTube channel just to experiment with native PHP, and then came to a podcast with Simon and Stephen Fox called The Bucket, which we'll have links to in the show notes for you. They spent hours geeking out about PHP, Laravel, and what could be possible. And then questions started to burn. Could we push Laravel further? Could it run on a phone? Would Apple or Google even allow it? Would it work offline? Would it destroy your battery? So Simon had his talk accepted. He gave at Laracon EU, which was native PHP for iOS. And in the talk, he showed exactly how they compiled PHP for iOS, embedded it into a Swift app, and it routed native requests through the PHP engine. And he then asked, what about Android? And he laughed and said it might be 6 months to a year before he could even start. However, skipping forward a little bit here, Shane said he was ready to do it. And less than 3 months later, he's extremely proud to announce that native PHP for Android will launch on May the 2nd as part of native PHP for mobile version 1. Version 1 of native PHP mobile will give you access to the ability to vibrate, share, the camera, the flashlight, biometric scanning, push notifications, deep links, toasts, alerts, all from Laravel code. It's not a wrapper or a hybrid hack. It is your Laravel app working the way you're used to, just running in a native shell with full access to device APIs. You can use Blade, Livewire, or Inertia. You can write controllers, use Eloquent, tap into your existing packages, and your web app is now a mobile app. So 3 months, basically, this happened. There is early access pricing to get access to this functionality. All tiers include early access to iOS, a license for Android on release day, and your name etched into the history of the native PHP project. Just Laravel everywhere, I think, is the bottom line of this one. So shout out to Shane. Yeah, incredible work that Shane and Simon and Marcel
Absolutely.
did to make this possibility come to life. I don't think I've got any reason to build a mobile application, but it's all possible now. So definitely check it out.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I remember it was probably, man, it had to be like 2017, something like that. Maybe, no, maybe like 2015. Long time ago. And I was tasked with using, trying to remember what it was, like web phone gap, I think is what it was called,
Mhm.
phone gap,
Yeah.
to build a mobile app using non-mobile app tools, right? It
Mhm.
was like use web tools to build
Yeah.
this into an iOS app. And it was just a disaster. Everything was just horrible. But the dream was like, oh, it would be so cool if I could use web technologies. And at that point, it was just like just web technologies. I didn't care
Mhm.
Laravel. I didn't think I knew Laravel at that point. Or maybe it wasn't a thing yet, but it was like the idea of being able to use web technologies to package up something into an iPhone app was incredible. Fast forward to we've been using Laravel, and that is the thing I know the best more than anything else. And now that's available to package as a native thing on a phone. It's unbelievable. And it's like a back end sort of language too, right? You
Yeah.
have the front
Yeah.
end tooling, but like the back end language stuff is available too. It's just wild. And so it's insanely exciting. And I can't wait to find a project that I get to use this on. I am positive I will come across one or I will invent a reason to use it at work. So
Yeah. For sure.
excited for that. Great work on that. The team there.
Mhm.
Okay. Laracon US. Every feels like every time we talk, we're talking about one of the Laracons. There's so many of them now. We have Laracon India, Laracon Australia, we have Laracon UK or EU. Sorry, Laracon
You.
EU. And so they're all great, but Laracon US tickets are on sale still. The headline here is Laracon US tickets are on sale. They've been on sale for a while. However, the Laracon US website just launched. So come to the absolute best conference July 29th through 30th in Denver, Colorado. Michael and myself will both be there, and we can't wait to see you there. The site lists all the announced speakers, hotel recommendations, and more. Congrats to our good buddy TJ Miller, who is going to be on the speaker list there. He's going to be talking about Prism, his awesome project that we get to hear about all the time. He's always talking about it in Telegram,
Mhm.
and we're so excited to hear about it at Laracon. It's going to be great. If you have not got your ticket, please get it today. Level up your Laravel knowledge, meet some awesome people in the community, and have tons of fun. So it's in Denver, Colorado, July 29th through 30th at the Mission Ballroom, right in the heart of Denver. Speakers announced so far were Taylor Otwell, Jess Archer, Joe Tannenbaum, Nuno, Maduro, Joe Dixon, Mary Perry. Love that name, Mary Perry. TJ Miller, Evan Yu, coming back from the Vue side of things to come talk at Laracon. Aaron Francis, of course, and more coming soon. So check that out at laracon.us to get your ticket, submit your talk, and learn all the details. We'll see you there.
I am very excited to be running on fumes for 3 days when I'm there. I committed to doing something to going to an event with some people today. I said, look, jet lag be damned. I haven't been there for 6 years. I'll be tired as all hell. I can sleep on the plane on the way home. So absolutely
Yeah,
looking forward to making the very most of it.
that'll be
Something
great.
else that I'm looking forward at making the most of is code review and doing that in a way where I can cut the time in half so I can do twice as much is appetizing to me. Appetizing? Appealing to me. You can cut code review time and bugs in half by supercharging your entire team with an AI driven contextual feedback loop from CodeRabbit. They have a 14-day free trial where no credit card is needed. You can sign up in just 2 clicks using your GitHub account. It is the most installed AI app on GitHub and GitLab and provides AI code review your way with fine-tuned code reviews using auto learnings from your feedback and configurable instructions. Simple PR summaries for complicated changes, whether changing a single line or adding a whole new feature. CodeRabbit generates crisp summaries of your code changes so that you know what has been changed and the impact. See a list of the changed files and a one-line description. And if you have any questions, you can just chat. You can get advice, generate code, or create issues with real-time chat on review comments. The more you interact, the more it learns. Code as usual, but receive smart reports, pull request summaries and sequence diagrams, linear and Jira validation, as well as auto-generated release notes, daily stand-up reports, sprint reviews, and more. You can sign up at CodeRabbit.ai, 14-day free trial, no credit card needed, and a 2-click sign-up. Thank you very much to CodeRabbit for sponsoring Laravel News.
Awesome, folks. Check them out. It's good stuff. Let's talk about some packages, shall we?
Let's do it.
Cookie consent. We all
Cookie
hate them,
consent.
but many people have to do it. If you have to comply with regulations like GDPR, you know what this is. And we all know what a cookie disclaimer is. So I'm not going to tell you what it is. I'm just going to tell you the features of this thing. There's a one-click implementation, has zero performance impact because it's insanely lightweight and it has lazy loaded components. It has hold on, I-18 and internationalization. Is that what that stands for? Yes.
You got it?
Internationalization and right to left support, dark mode, granular consent control, automatic script blocking, complete customization, responsive design, on and on and on the list goes. All you have to do, compose or install, publish the package resources, and then you add the styles and the scripts just before the closing body tag. They give you an example in here. You can edit the cookie consent config to allow you to configure cookie lifetimes, visual styles, text content, etc., etc. We all hate them. If you have to do it, though, you should not have to rewrite it reinvent the wheel. Laravel cookie consent. Check it out.
Yes. Laravel Simple RabbitMQ package makes it simple to use RabbitMQ with support for multiple connections, easy publishing, and consumer mode. If you've been around the Laravel community for a while, you would know that there used to be first-party RabbitMQ support for queuing.
Indeed.
But if you are not familiar with it, the package lets you easily configure multiple queues and exchange connections via Laravel's service container. On the consumer end, you can handle jobs in a way that you would expect in Laravel. So there's a handle method. It would be passed a message. You could do whatever you need to do and then acknowledge the message and return an OK status. Main features include multiple connections effortlessly managed within the same application. You can push messages to exchanges. You can easily publish messages to queues and exchanges with a fluent chainable syntax. It enables consumers to receive and process messages from queues in real time, and you can register queues and exchange in config and define them in an easy way with a AMQP define queues command. The simple RabbitMQ Laravel package uses PHP AMQP lib as the RabbitMQ client, which is a pure PHP implementation of the AMQP protocol. If you've never used Rabbit, check out the RabbitMQ tutorials and documentation. We'll have links to all of that, including getting started instructions for the package in the show notes.
Very nice. Folks, another one of those staple things that you've got to figure out at some point in your application is toasters. And so if you've not figured that out yet, or you're not happy with the current solution that you have, Toast Magic is a toast package, a powerful and flexible toast package built for Laravel applications. So why should you use this one? It's easy to use. It again has right to left support for languages that are not English or ones that require you to print from right to left, dark mode, and customizable notifications. As always with these things, there's two things that matter, really. Three things. What's the API look like? What do the default notifications look like? Because most of us are not going to take the time to customize them. We want something that looks good out of the box.
Mhm.
But number three, in the case that you do need to customize them, how difficult are they to customize? And I have to say, this one looks to be pretty good on all three of those fronts. You just require it, publish the service provider, a couple things. You have to put the styles in the header, the scripts in the footer, and then it's pretty easy. Toaster Magic, Dodop. There's just a facade. Toaster Magic, Dodop success. Pass in the message. He has on the GitHub repo a demo where you can go and adjust all the different settings and see all the different options that are available. You can trigger it and see what they look like, which is pretty important when making that decision because, again, you want to see what all the options are and you want to see how good it looks and then how easy it is to customize. Again, looks like it nails it. pretty good on all three of those fronts. So Laravel Toaster Magic is the name of that one. Check it out if you need a solution on that front.
Yeah, they do look
They
very
do.
nice indeed.
Absolutely.
Firebase Cloud notifications for Laravel. The Syntec Firebase Cloud messaging package for Laravel makes it easy to use Laravel's notification system to send Firebase notifications. The use case for FCM messages includes
Mhm,
iOS and Android
mhm.
apps, web applications, Flutter, and more. Uh, you can use it in the same way that you would use any other notifiable within Laravel, which is great. That's why we have this extensible notification system. You can learn more about the package, get full installation instructions, and view the source code. Links will be in the show notes.
Yeah, Firebase is. I've got a friend who uses Firebase for practically everything. And it's
Mhm,
one of those deals, sort of like Amazon Web Services, where you can use it really well or you can use it really poorly.
mhm.
And a lot of people, unfortunately, use it really poorly. And so
Yeah.
Firebase gets a bit of a bad name. But this package, of course, makes it easy for you to do push notifications to things. If you're going to be building one of those iOS apps using PHP, like we talked about just a little bit ago, you might need something like this to help you get those push messages out. Check that one out. Okay, moving on, my friends. Safely retrying API calls in Laravel. So, item potency for Laravel is a production ready package for implementing item potency in API requests. I know the name item potency, and I feel like what it means, the poor man's definition of this is being able to do the same action multiple times without it affecting it. Like you can only do it once. I think it only will do.
Yeah, you could run the job multiple times, but it will always end in the same
Yeah,
outcome.
right,
Yeah.
right, right. Thank you. There we go. So if you have something like this, this will allow clients to safely retry API calls using this package without worrying about duplicate processing. So, using the item potency key header with a unique UUID, you can send the same key over and over, and the original response is returned without running an operation multiple times. So, when using this package, API responses include an item potency key that API users safely use in the future to rerun the operation. What are some of the main features here? Robust caching. So this will reliably store and serve those cached responses. Again, if we're talking about the item potency key, they're passing that back in. It's going to retrieve that value from the cache and return that response. Lock-based concurrency control. So this prevents race conditions with distributed locks across servers that are deployed across multiple, sites that are deployed across multiple servers. Comprehensive telemetry, so you can track and monitor those idempotent operations. It will notify you, alert you in the case of suspicious activity. It will validate payloads and detect when the same key is used with different payload values. So you have an idempotency key that's used with a certain payload, and then that same idempotency key gets used with a different payload. Something might be off there, so it will validate that. Also has detailed logging, so it will easily debug those idempotency issues. You can learn more about this package and get full installation instructions and view the source code on GitHub. Michael, what do we think would be a situation where you would use something like this? I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm interested here. Implementing an
Hey,
item potency in API response or requests. Yeah. What do you think?
it's when you're sending requests out to third-party systems, I suppose you'd want to somehow. I've done this with like a fingerprint where I would wrap the body up. You know, you do essentially a JSON encode and then do a SHA of the body to get like the item potency key. This sends it as a header, which depending on where you're sending it, they might treat that as I'm receiving multiple calls to the same thing. But you know, in this example around payments, you don't want to charge a customer twice because you didn't get a response back or something timed out or whatever else. You know, you don't want to charge someone $100 two times for the same order and things like that. So, the item potency keys um, are used to kind of say, you know, this is a single operation, and you could send that request 10 times, 100 times, and wherever you're sending it would hopefully know, you know, don't do this again. Or you could use it within your own context as well to be like, I've already, you know, done this thing, so discard. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I
it's
think that's the idea
interesting.
is that you wrap this in a you wrap a middleware, this item potency middleware around an API method of yours. And then when you make a request, to make an
I
endpoint
also think
request,
this
mine
is
should
coming
include,
into your
yeah.
application.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. I think that's what it
Mm,
is. Yeah,
yeah,
if
so
the
maybe I
same
misinterpreted that.
idempotency key is used again with the same payload, the original response is returned without re-executing the operation.
Mm.
Yeah, so it's a
Right.
bit
Yeah.
of an
So my bad.
interesting
Yeah. This
one.
is putting in middleware in your application. So it's tracking, have I done something with this? Just adding another layer. In the payment example, for example,
Yeah.
in the
hmm
payment example, for instance,
For instance,
you
there you go.
you are processing the payments or you are handling
Yeah,
tickets,
yeah, sure.
or whatever it is inside of your handling code or your job or whatever. You might go and check your database for a checkout ID or a payment ID and say, like, is this successful? Like, has it reached a terminable state? And you might use a state machine for that, right? So that you know,
Ah, there
okay,
you
we're,
go.
we're failed. We can't go back to processing, or we're successful. We can't go back to processing, or whatever. So things like that. So you could use the item potency key as another check to say, no, I've already processed this. You might store it against that payment record to say, like, I've got this key, it's already there. And you might go, if I get the same thing, I shouldn't
Yeah,
reprocess
yeah,
it.
should yeah.
You might decide, hey, I've got the key here. I shouldn't do anything with it at all. Doesn't matter if it's a different key. I've already processed this payment. So yeah,
Okay, thank you for the explanation. That's helpful. Appreciate it.
yeah, nice one. Last package we have here is the HTTP fixtures package for Laravel, which generates fake JSON responses for external API calls in tests using the Laravel HTTP fake method. It simplifies creating mock responses by integrating with Faker to generate realistic test data. So generating responses can be tedious, and the package makes it easy by creating a fixture from a real HTTP request in your test. So you can use the HTTP record method, which is provided by this package to record the responses and then make a request, and then you can record the HTTP fixture. So this is taking an actual request that you send one time, and then it will use that existing request for all subsequent tests. So you've got real data. This creates fixtures for you, and the underlying data is then used using Faker in a fixture class that you can reuse and generate. You can even generate fixtures from a JSON file or via an artisan command, so you can simulate this data. Typically, what we do is we will record fixtures when we make requests to third-party systems,
Mhm.
and then we will save that as a JSON fixture.
Like you manually do
But
it. Yeah, right.
right, but we would also then go and we would modify to redact information. So we would need real looking data to send to
Mhm.
the API, but then we might take out first name, last name, email address, phone number, things like that that come back in that response, just so that we're not storing any PII, personally identifiable information inside of our code base anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
But once you have created the fixtures, you can use them in your test by just passing the fixture into the HTTP response using the HTTP fakes as you would normally. Main features of the package include recording fixture classes from live HTTP request, creating a fixture from a JSON file, creating a new fixture via the package's artisan command, controlling fixture output, so you could do JSON or XML or just returning an array, and you can override specific keys using array dot notation. So we'll have links to all of that for you in the show notes. If you've ever used anything like I know in Ruby they have VCR. If you've ever used
Yeah,
Saloon, which does all this
VCR, yeah,
fixture
yeah.
stuff for you, it's. I think this is more of an agnostic approach to that, where you could create these fixture classes. So definitely check it out.
Pretty cool. Folks, we've got 8 different tutorials here. I'm going to buzz through the first 4. Michael's going to buzz through the second 4. Here we go. Navigating dates elegantly with Carbon in Laravel. If you've needed to use date times in Laravel and you're new to this whole Laravel thing, Carbon is a great tool for you to use. And if you've not used it much, you might not be aware of all the magic that it affords you. So this is a great post to talk about some of that magic, how you can navigate between dates and, things like give me the next Wednesday, give me the previous Sunday, give me plus add weeks, sub weeks, sub days, add weeks, no, sub month, no overflow, et cetera, et cetera. It's a good one to check that out if you have not done so before. Check that one out. Navigating dates elegantly with Carbon. Optimizing actions with Laravel's Fluent class. We've talked about this a couple times on the show. Laravel's Fluent class delivers enhanced data transformation capabilities for action classes. It really takes arrays and converts them to these Fluent interfaces that you can use so that you can more easily access attributes. That's what that one's about. If you've not done this before, again, definitely check that one out. Streamlining context validation in Laravel. Laravel enhances context validation with the introduction of missing and missing hidden methods. This is talking about that context class that Tim McDonald introduced a little bit ago, some months ago. And so if you're needing to validate that something exists in context, this is a great tutorial to check out. Verifying exception reporting in Laravel with assertReported. So Laravel simplifies testing exception flows, which can be extremely difficult, I will say. But if you're needing to test exception flows, you can now test them through the exception facades assert reported method. This used to be really difficult, actually, but it's now quite simple. Exceptions, dodop, assert reported, and then pass in the exception class they are expecting there. This provides a robust way to verify that exceptions are properly captured and reported inside your applications. So check that one out. Thank you to Harris Raftopoulos for most of those, if not all of them. Michael, on to you.
Hmm. Converting array values in to enum instances with Laravel's mapInto method. So we talked about doing this in the as collection context earlier in the show. This is talking about using that specifically, using your validation as well, and then doing the mapInto operation. Laravel's asHtmlString cast for elegant HTML attribute management. Laravel 12.4 introduced this cast, which allows you to transform the way developers work with HTML in Eloquent models. And the feature itself automates the conversion of string attributes to HTML string instances, eliminating manual conversion. So check that one out as well, especially if you're storing user input from WYSIWYG editors and things like that.
Hmm. Hmm.
Confidently extract single array items with Laravel's array sol method. We've had this in Eloquent for some time. It was added to the collection class at some point. It's obviously part of the array helper as well. This enhances Laravel enhances array manipulation with the powerful array class, and the sol method brings the functionality of Eloquent's sol operation to standard PHP arrays, which will the method itself ensures you retrieve exactly one matching item, eliminating the need for multiple validation checks. And lastly, enhance validation testing precision with Laravel's assert only JSON validation errors. So sometimes I know I've been bitten by this before. I've done assert JSON validation errors, and it will show you that yes, there is a validation error there, but there could be other validation errors as well. So the assert only JSON validation errors make sure that you get that one and only validation error you are testing for, which you ship this test pass, ship it to production, and find that something's not working because something has been missed. This will give you explicit control over that testing. Yeah, but as you mentioned, Harris did all the first four. He also did the last four that I read. So shout out to Harris Raftopoulos for all of the work he puts into these tutorials.
Absolutely. Hey, folks, that is episode 236. We made it in exactly 43 minutes as of right now. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. Really appreciate it. If you'd like to find show notes for this episode, you can find them at podcast.laravel-news.com/236. If you have any questions, comments, or would like to chat with us, please do so on x.com or Blue Sky at Michael Dorinda, at Jacob Bennett, or at Laravel News. And of course, as always, if you liked the show, we would really appreciate it if you'd rate it up in your podcatcher of choice. 5 stars would be absolutely amazing. Until next time, folks, make sure you ask me about that really embarrassing story, and we'll see ya in 2 weeks. Take it easy.
Bye all.